So I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Wave story. I was told not to make it too selly, so I've tried to remove all of those components. You can judge me on that after. But the way I've structured it is to sort of talk about the 5 top lessons that I've learned over the last 6 years, hopefully make that interesting for you, and then give you a sense of how we're looking at how is an accounting and invoicing company actually playing in the fintech space, and how do we look at it. So 5 top lessons. The first is, many of you might be aware that we're actually in a very different type of business model where we're giving away the core software for free. And I can tell you that over the last 6 years, that's led to a lot of headaches. It started when we were pitching this idea to very conservative angel groups in Canada who thought we were, quite frankly, insane and stupid and it was a bad idea, all the way to a meeting a couple of days ago with a really smart guy who was saying, why don't you just charge $5 a month? And I bring it up only because I think that there is a real value in entrepreneurs having a core hypothesis that they're going after, a real desire to sort of change the market, and to stick to your guns through that process, because it's going to be challenging. There's going to be a lot of naysayers. There's going to be a lot of reasons why people can tell you you're going to fail. The challenge is to really sort of cut through where are people actually giving you good advice because you're knocking your head against a brick wall and you're never going to knock it down, and where is sticking to your guns, really, really important. I think the decision that we made going free has been the best decision we've made. It's certainly sort of cut against the grain. It's certainly created a whole hell of a lot of challenges. But I think the innovation that we can bring to this space, the customer-centric approach that we can take, has really sort of played itself out. And I think this is an example. I've made plenty of mistakes, and we'll talk about some of them, but this is an example where I think it's really, really important that despite a current of sort of information that you're making the wrong decision, that in the core places you really stick to what sort of made you passionate about the space in the first place. But the second aspect of that is what we learned the hard way was that going free is a great marketing tactic. It's not a product strategy. And we learned this lesson in a lot of ways. It took us too long to learn this lesson. I think if you're a typical sort of SaaS business, the metrics that you're watching are all about conversion to paid, churn, and these kinds of key metrics that are going to grow your business. When you're free, you're not watching those as closely. You're thinking about what's my top of funnel, what's my cost of acquisition, how am I going to convert these guys into other services that are going to drive revenue. And I think for too long we made the mistake of believing that free would overcome product deficiencies. And the bottom line is I'm here to say I've lived it and it doesn't. And so, thankfully 18 months ago, we sort of realized, and it really came to head when I thought to myself, I'm the co-founder with my co-founder James of a company that we're not 100% proud of the product. And that's quite frankly a really shitty place to be. And so again, free is a marketing tactic, it's an acquisition tactic, it does not overcome product deficiencies. The third is, as entrepreneurs, we're bombarded with great stories of all of these amazing entrepreneurs who have gone from 0 to $1 billion in like 18 months. And if you're not doing that, you suck. And if you really have lived through it, if you're in the conversations where founders are talking candidly, not to TechCrunch, but to each other about what's really going on, there's a lot of challenges, typically. Those 0 to $1 billion stories are the 1 in a million that have hit it and been either really good, really lucky, or really amazing, and have hit that trajectory that most of us don't. And I'll be candid that we had many, many situations along the way over the last 6 years where we were in trouble. And, there's this saying, just stay alive. And I think in a lot of ways, we're one of the poster childs for just stay alive. Like just get the opportunity, whether it be days, weeks, months, to find that thing that's going to change the trajectory of your business. And I can tell you that happens oftentimes in those days, weeks, and months if you can find a way to stay alive. The fourth is there's a real advantage to hitting trends. And so we're all here at the FinTechTO meetup. And if you look at this chart, FinTech and the expression FinTech didn't really exist up until, 18 months ago. And now all anyone can ever talk about is what's happening in FinTech. And a person that's making widgets is calling themselves a FinTech company. And there's a reason for it. It's because there's a lot of tailwind that comes along with if you can hit these trends. Now again, the important thing is not to think, oh, I see this trend, I'm going to go out and try and build a business in this trend because it's trendy. Because that's the path to years of hardship because you're not passionate about the space, you're just doing it because you're trying to hit the trend of choice. But when you do, whether it's VC funding, whether it's partnerships, I can't tell you, I met with BMO in 2011, and it was like the worst meeting I've ever had. And now all of those banks are calling us going how can we do something together? And so when you hit a trend and you're part of those tailwinds, it's incredibly advantageous. So the fifth is, he'd be really sort of embarrassed that I did this. He's not here tonight, but this is a guy by the name of Les Whiting. And the fifth sort of key lesson that I've learned is oftentimes key hires can be just as influential, if not more so, than founders. And Les is a really good example of this. I hired him in 2012, totally lucky to get him. And he had a vision at that time of going all the way to the bank account through the accounting software. Now I could tell you you saw on that last graph, no one in 2012 was thinking an accounting software could go all the way to the bank account. And so he's had a huge influence on what we've been doing at Wave, how we think about the world, what we've been trying to accomplish. And so when you're out there looking for, key hires, just know that decision is even more important than you think at the time. And you think it's really important, it's even more so because they can have as much, if not more so, of an impact than the founders themselves. So I want to end with just, why am I up here talking about FinTech? Honestly, how is an accounting software? I couldn't be more bored thinking and talking about accounting software. How is this company up here at a FinTech event? How does this make sense? So I just want to end on that note. I won't take a lot of time with it. So I might geek out a little bit here, so forgive me. But we're going after micro small business owners. So think of them as sort of 0 to 9 employee, sub 2 million, 3 million in revenue. And interestingly, most people aren't aware that 95% of all businesses in North America, higher globally, are in that 0 to 9 stage, okay? And so third-party research would tell you that anywhere from 40 to 60% of them use no software whatsoever other than Word, Excel, and shoeboxes. So typically, the way they've lived their life is at the banking and money movement layer. They've been very cognizant of their bank account and the bank balance, the credit card, payroll software to pay their employees, needing to take a loan, all that kind of stuff. And oftentimes, that's as deep as they've gone. They've literally run, is my business successful? Well, yeah, I got $3,000 in my bank account. I must be successful. And what stopped them from using the software is two things. Number one is in between those layers is a whole hell of a lot of pain. Manual entry, uploading bank statements, using Yodlee, all of that kind of stuff has led to pain. The second is that typically that software has been really geared towards accountants and not the small business owners. So what we've been trying to prove is that actually done properly, the software can eat into that banking and money movement layer and take a lot of it over. And so the question of where am I going to get my merchant account? Where am I going to get a loan? How am I going to pay my bills? Imagine a world where the same software as you need to use to get out to tax, to invoice your customers, to pay your employees. Imagine if I could do all of that activity in the software itself, and through the money movement that I'm doing, everything can auto-reconcile and I don't have to touch that accounting. Best case scenario. So this is our hypothesis about why an accounting and invoice software provider who's gaining customers at under $1 and who has a tremendous amount of data to make good decisions about those customers and the products we offer can become an interesting fintech player. And just to drive this home, $300 billion market cap company, Wells Fargo, look what they're trying to sell small businesses on their homepage. They're trying to sell them all the things, and quite frankly, doing it successfully. They're trying to sell them all the things that I'm talking about. And so if we can embed that into the software and make a better customer experience, the average small business owner in the US spends 33 hours getting ready to walk into a bank to take a loan and only get a third of the capital that they need. Imagine if through the process of using your accounting software, we have all the data to be making that decision. It takes you no time and the money is deposited into your account the next day. That's a game changer for small businesses, and that's where we want to play. And that's all I got. Any questions?
How did you arrive at your business model? Do you have foresight on the amount of data you would collect to form products down the road? Or
Yeah.
what was the inspiration to make popcorn?
Yeah, so the question is, what was the inspiration at the beginning and how did we land in this place? So I'd like to think that we had dreamt all that up, those previous slides, but that's been an iteration and heavily influenced by Les. I think at the time, looking back, we were influenced by two things. The first is interesting. The second is actually kind of funny and makes us look silly. The first was what Mint was doing in personal finance. We thought was really, really interesting. And we thought that going after small business with that kind of model would actually have two advantages. Number one is if you look or have been or are a typical Mint customer, you have this, euphoric first 30 days of adoption, and then you start seeing, oh my God, I'm spending $200 a month at Starbucks, I shouldn't look at this anymore, or something along those lines. Or you just drop off, you're the typical person who doesn't budget for personal expenses, like most of us don't. And so their usage curve looks something like this. So we thought, number one, small business would be more apt for that model because at the end of year, they have to get out to tax. So there's a compliance reason why they have to stay on top of their books. And then number two, Mint was, had a nice exit, $170 million into it, but they reached a cap and a ceiling where, the advertising offer-based model only had so much upside. And we thought small businesses had many, many more add-on services that could apply. Did we dream up, all the fintech stuff? No, not at the time. But we knew that there was really good opportunity with those users, with the data, and with the usage that we thought would come along with it.
First of all, I'm a professional accountant. I use your software. I love it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Second question is, when you first started, did you find hesitation from your initial clients about putting all of their financial data online? And if so, how do you get around it?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we were launching, we spent a lot of time thinking about where we were going to place the lock icon and how many SSL certificate icons were we going to put and where we were going to put them. And we actually found that people didn't really care. And we've actually removed a lot of that noise from the screens because we haven't found that it moves the needle. I think we've all, recently I've gone through the experience, as many of us have, I'm sure, of Uber asking me if I want to turn on my information of where I am up to 5 minutes after my ride. And I'm kind of on the surface, I'm like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. But then I'm like, Uber is so good, I'm going to turn it on to make my life easier, right? And so I think people have this view of, security is important, and of course it is, but give them convenience and it trumps pretty much everything.
Spoke about BMO and Wells Fargo. Can you speak to what competition you're facing now from the FIs here in Canada?
Yeah. So sorry, question was, you talked about BMO and Wells Fargo. Can you talk about sort of where the banks are today? I think they're actively thinking about what does the future look like, right? And that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for all of us, consumers, that they be challenged, because it's going to lead to better customer experiences over time. Specifically talking about each one of their roadmaps and stuff like that, I don't have enough intel, nor am I at liberty to share it, but I think they're actively thinking about how do they make the customer journeys better, how do they figure out small business when you've got a cost of acquisition of $1,000 for a small business, and we only see a slice of their data. How can we be making the best possible decisions? Are there better ways to go to market to attract those customers and retain them and make them stickier? And how do we make sure that we're not just the pipes and and dealing with the regulators, and instead continue to have a vibrant relationship with our customers? And as I said, I think that's a good thing for fintechs. It opens up opportunities, and it's a good thing for customers.
How do you see your competitors, like FreshBooks? They also start. I'm actually paying Amansa for my subscription of FreshBooks. So you guys are free. What is more you can be profitable based on more?
So competitors in general, I want to make it 100% clear. I have a huge amount of respect for FreshBooks, right? Like a pioneer in the market in 2006. Mike and the guys have done a really great job with the company. I think it's a competitive landscape, whether it be FreshBooks, Harvest, Cashew, Xero, QuickBooks, I could probably name 50 others. I think first of all, if you add up all of the users globally, all the small businesses globally that are using any sort of a cloud accounting solution today, you'd be sub 2%. So there's a huge amount of greenfield in this space. And so I don't really think we're going to be bumping up against each other in any sort of big, meaningful way. And there's a bunch of analyst reports that talk about this for the next 3-4 years. The market hasn't actually changed that much, even since when I started in 2010. But it's a competitive landscape, and I come down to, what do we need to do as a company? We need to execute at a high level, and we need to build customer delight. And if we can do those things, we're probably going to be fine. Hi. It's a really interesting question. I don't even know if I could summarize it. So I really admit when I don't know the answer to something, and I don't know the answer. I think there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, there's going to be people who, I think you're going to see, in the next 12 to 18 months, that there is going to be a like rash of M&A activity, and as soon as one bank starts moving, it's going to create this whole me too, I got to catch up and I'll pay insane prices for it. And I think through that process, you're going to discover, who are the companies that, want to sell or don't believe in their model enough and believe that the shareholder return at that time is worth it. And then you're going to see a whole bunch of other companies who are like, I'm here to grow a big business. I want to keep this innovative culture. I don't want to work for a bank. It's not about the money. I think it's the same that you see in every category. You good?